Do you listen to Wig Radio? It's the best online radio with all-round gospel content, and it's live 24/7. Gospel of entrepreneurship, Activate Airplane, Happy Hour, Kingdom Mandate, Praise and Passion. Let's talk about it. Morning Drive, Morning Gist, and lots more. On www.wigradio.com. Wig Radio. Our programs are set to take you from where you are to where you ought to be. You can call into our programs on +234 816 444 5960 and interact with us via twitter.com/wigradio or facebook.com/wigradio. Download Wig Radio mobile app for Android, BlackBerry, and Apple devices from different stores online. Wig Radio, reaching the world with good news, transforming lives globally.
Alright, it's still your number one online gospel radio station, Wig Radio. Our vision is to reach the world with good news. Like we would always tell you, the good news you need to hear to take you from where you are to where you ought to be is what we are committed to bringing your way on a daily basis. It's been an awesome and interesting day in the studio, and we've had a wonderful lineup of program from morning drive down to the big three, and then we moved ahead to have praise and passion. And right about now it is time for, let's talk about it, relationship. And I'm not going to be doing this alone. Getting relationship right with PerfectStar. And I'm in the studio with my one and only beautiful wife, Okpeyeoluwa Esther Lawa, Okpestar herself. And I tell you, it promises to be an amazing time. We're talking about something that would interest you, that would actually bless you so much. What are we talking about? I'm going to tell you immediately after this break. Don't touch that dial.
My trust is in you. I put them all in you, Jesus. My trust is in you. I put them all in you. My trust is in you. Isumi amambete alebos ayane. Hey, my trust is in you. My trust is in you. Hey, I put them all in you. My trust is in you. Hey, I am Masuli, I'm a man. I put them all in you. Hey, my trust is in you. I put them all in you. So mama, my trust in you.
Alright, we're talking about getting relationship right here on Wig Radio. And we actually started this conversation some couple of days back, and that is talking about God's spec and my spec. God's spec and my spec. And we're going to play you.
What if God's will is not my spec?
Yes, what is God's will concerning my spec? You know, there are times when.
What if God's will is not?
What is God's?
What if God's will is
What
not?
if God's will
is not my
is
spec?
not my spec? Okay.
Yes.
So we are looking at what if God's will is not my spec, and there will definitely be times when, as a believer, you find yourself in this situation. And it's not only in the aspect of relationship. So someone might say that, oh, okay, but I'm not even thinking about relationship now. So whether you're thinking about relationship or not, I want you to listen with an open mind. I want you to get blessed by this because sometimes also it could have to do with some other aspect of life, wherein it seems as if what God has in mind is different from what you have in mind. And we see different examples like that in scripture. So we are going to be looking at this together today. So, but like I said earlier on, I have in the studio with me my beautiful wife, Okbesta. So, Okbesta, people want to get to hear from you. And then, do you have any personal experience you want to share along the line of God's will, your spec? Have there been any instance? I don't want us to start on the platform of relationship yet. I just want us to start from a general something that anybody can relate with. Situation wherein there was something that you desired. Unfortunately, God says, no, that is not what I want. I'm doing
Okay.
something different.
I want to start with, as you know, as you were talking, I remembered some particular Bible characters came to mind. I remember Jacob, Rachel, and Leah, the dynamic trio, the three.
Jacob, Rachel, and Leah.
Yes, the
I'm
three.
hearing that word for the first time, the dynamic trio.
Yes,
I
I'm
think
still
I
going to look
love
for a
that.
better name for the three of them, but the three people that are basically almost, and in the background there you have somebody like Laban, So those three people, the three of them, Jacob had a spec. Jacob's spec was Rachel.
Yeah, and I particularly love the way the Bible talks about Jacob. The Bible talks about the fact that he loved Rachel because she was fair.
Yeah, he saw her and he was like, wow, omopupa,
Hmm.
fine girl. And this was what he wanted. She was, unfortunately, women don't have tall, dark, and handsome. Let's say Rachel was curvy, she was Chioma Jesus and sexy at the same time,
Okay.
So Jacob liked
Or Victoria
Rachel.
Wenze and Kim Kardashian together.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention the K name on this program. So, she was that kind of spec. And Jacob wanted her. And, the kind of spec that somebody would work for 7 years for. He labored 7 years just to get Rachel. He labored 7 years just to get Rachel. 7 years.
Yeah, and it wasn't even 7 years. After that 7 years, and then it was like, okay, now it's time for me to get my
No,
Rachel.
I'm even talking about the initial agreement.
Yes, the original
Somebody
agreement.
says you should work for somebody for 7 years. I don't think many men in our generation can you work for a lady for 7 years.
Definitely,
Lie.
definitely not.
So eventually we see God, because now we know that there is an entire story. So eventually we see God in the picture. God's spec for Jacob was actually a Leah. I don't know if you get what I mean.
I
It was a
totally
Leah.
agree.
Because Jesus came
From
from
the lineage
that
of
lineage of Leah, from Judah.
yes.
Leah was one that gave birth to the what should we call it? Leah gave birth to the Messiah's race.
Yes, Leah gave birth to Judah, and Judah was the progenitor of
Now that same
Jesus
Leah
Christ.
was not Jacob's spec.
In fact, the Bible makes us to understand that there were a lot of instances that will happen that Jacob actually gave more favor
To Rachel.
Rachel
He
compared to
loved
Leah.
Rachel. Rachel was his spec. But Leah was the spec of God for Jacob.
I remember the first time I actually got to hear that particular message. I think it was in one of the MLR, and it was from Bogbile. And then, all of a sudden, it just opened my eyes to realize the fact that actually the person that was God's will for Jacob was actually Leah. Unfortunately, but Jacob was like, hey, no. So it was as if even the deception that Jacob was being deceived was even like a way for God to show him and tell him that, okay, guy, I will still make sure that you end up in my will. But unfortunately, Jacob on the other hand was like, no, 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 no. I still want this. I still want. He still went ahead to go for the woman that he felt was supposed to be his own spec, and well, but in God's infinite mercy, God still allowed the Messiah to come through the tribe of Leah. And well, if you look at Rachel, Rachel did not even enter into the promised land
Of
with
course.
them. She died on the wayside.
So it's possible for God to have planned out somebody that you entirely do not even have a preference for, somebody that you will not even look at a second time. Jacob did not, he didn't even see Leah, like,
The Bible says in the book of Genesis chapter 29 and verse 17, it said Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Now, I think it's important for us to talk about something important. Could it be that the reason why Jacob preferred, still on verse 18 of that same Genesis chapter 29, let me start from verse 16. I want us to see the picture of those two people there.
Okay.
Because I believe that there will be somebody, there's a young man listening to me right now who find himself in that particular situation. From verse 16 it said, and Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Now, we need to find out what exactly does it mean to be tender-eyed. Another translation says it was cross-eyed, meaning that if she's looking in one direction, it looks as if she's looking in another direction.
What people call after 4 in this place.
Okay. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. So Jacob loved Rachel. Now the question that is on my mind is, what was the reason why Jacob loved Rachel? Could it be because she was beautiful? She was curvy.
She had hips.
Okay. So meaning that it was based on what you saw physically.
Yeah, and I think almost every man likes what they see physically first. There's something that must attract you. They said beauty is in the eye of the beholder. There's something that must attract you to a particular woman. You must see something in a woman that you like. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
There must be something about that woman that you will like, that you will love.
Physical attraction.
Yes, physical attraction. The place of physical attraction is actually very important too in a relationship. But the point is that physical attraction should not be your major. God sees beyond that physical attraction.
Okay, somebody listening to this right now, there's one thing that you must get from this. Physical attraction is not enough. Yes, physical attraction is important, but it is not enough. That should not be the only thing you are looking at. Because the description, because I will always wonder, what is the difference between Leah and Rachel? And the only 2 things that we were told is in that Genesis chapter 29 verse 17, which Leah was tender-eyed. That was the only thing they mentioned about Leah. The second thing, then the only thing they mentioned about Rachel was that she was beautiful and well-favored.
Well, I don't know. Everybody had before I got married.
Yeah.
I had spec.
Okay, so tell us about your spec.
Yes, I wanted. Yeah, I was coming to that.
Good.
I wanted a guy that was tall.
Tall.
I wanted someone that was fair.
Fair.
And so basically, it means that
someone that is from Ekiti State.
Now we're talking about physical.
Someone that is an Anglican.
We're talking about physical.
Okay, physical.
Attraction
what you
now.
Okay.
So if I see 5 people.
Yes.
And then if I see 5 guys.
Yes.
And then maybe 4 of them were dark. There's a probability that I'll probably look at the fair one first. Now, the fair and the tall one.
Yo, this guy
not necessarily fair, like as in that it has to maybe look bleach or something. Yes, but just fair, like just a fair guy. Now, I did not. I don't know why I had that liking. I don't know why, but he just
there.
Yes, I just found out I was attracted to somebody that was fair. So that's just basically it. I found out I was more attracted to people that were fair than those that were dark. So I think the same happens with guys too. There are some guys that the only people they're attracted to are tall ladies. Some they only like short ladies. No matter what you say, that's what they are. Before we now begin to go to the
So the other category,
sapiosexual. You know, some people say that they are sapiosexual. And they are attracted to people that are intelligent. You know, those ones they are by the way. But now we are talking about physical attraction. I don't think Jacob had interaction with Rachel.
Okay.
But immediately he saw her.
Because in fact, I will say, I think I agree with what you are saying. So it seemed to me like Jacob was moved primarily by what he saw.
And there's nothing bad in that.
Yes, there's nothing bad in that.
There's nothing bad
but
in
that shouldn't be the only
Yes,
thing
God sees beyond
the physical
physical.
attraction.
God sees 20 years from now.
Hmm.
God sees 30 years from now. He sees.
And just talking about that same racial scenario, eventually when they were going to enter into the promised land, and I believe that was actually one of the things that caused the death of Rachel. She carried an idol with her, and it was like Jacob. Maybe we should actually read that account so that we can understand it very, very well. But in that account, she carried an idol with her, and Jacob got to the point where he began to say, "Oh, anybody that have this idol, we can let the person die." Eventually, they didn't find the idol, but the word had already been pronounced, and so because the word had been pronounced, now eventually our end was death. She couldn't enter into the land of promise with them.
I think there's something about God and His mercy.
Yes.
I think eventually God just had to pick one of Rachel's children to be useful in the scheme of things. And He used Joseph. Probably God would have used one of Leah's children. But so that it won't be, like it's only Leah's.
It's just a show of God's mercy.
Yes.
Okay, but Professor, what do you think would have happened if Jacob had gone ahead to marry Leah and there was no Rachel in the picture? What do you think would have happened?
Well, I think.
Let's assume that after that 7 years, and then they came and then they told him that, sorry, we can't allow the elder to get to be left behind. With the younger cannot get married before the elder, and then and maybe out of anger or willingness or unwillingness, say, okay, no problem. After serving for 7 years, this is what you do, and he just carried Leah, got married to her, and moved on with his life. What could have happened?
Well,
would there have been a famine? Would the entire nation of Israel have been wiped out?
I think God would have picked.
Would
I think
probably have
one
looked
of
for someone else
of
that could
Leah's
have used to
children.
deliver them.
One of Leah's children would have been the one that would
I
have
agree with you.
gone through that process. That's you mentioned something about God's mercy. There's the mercy of God. Even Leah knew that God was with her. When she was naming her children, the kind of names she was giving them, she said, God has seen that my husband hates me. Now I have given him 4 boys. My husband will now
and God
love
was
me.
actually giving her those children.
You understand? My husband will now love me. All those, let's assume that this, in Yoruba land, should have named them Oluwadamilare, Ojuti Ota, Ekeloju Oti, Oluwatota Mole. Those kind of names. Oluwaferanmi.
Just to prove a point.
Yes. So the fact is that
Oluwapepe them.
Oh my God. That's a nice one. The fact remains that there is something about God. He has a plan for individual lives. Before Jacob was born, God already knew that there was going to be a Jesus. He knew that there was going to be a lineage of Judah. That we're going to call Jesus the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So he already knew how Judah was going to come. So the spec, Rachel. Or probably, maybe if Rachel had even not taken those idols, like you said, maybe she should have given birth to some other children who would have been useful in the scheme of things. But God has His ways. So, but the point is that our spec, our determining life partner should go beyond physical attraction.
So we should not completely close our eyes to physical attraction,
Yes.
but we must look beyond physical attraction. And I feel that a lot of times these people that have this struggle with God's spec, my spec, more often than not, it's usually as a result of the fact that they are picking their spec based on physical attraction.
Oh yes.
Based on physical attraction. But God is the one, and I love what God said to Samuel. When Samuel was also moved by physical attraction, Samuel had the opportunity to go and pick the king from the house of Jesse. Now, God had already told him, go to the house of Jesse. So he did not mistake that. He was sure, he was convinced beyond reasonable doubt that the next king of the nation of Israel is coming from the house of Jesse. Unfortunately, God did not tell him which of them. So when he got there, he looked, and then he saw the firstborn. Number one, he was the elder one, and he looked at him heavily built. He had 6-pack, and he had leadership skills. In fact, when Samuel got to the house of Jesse, it was obvious that maybe the way Eliab, that's the name of the firstborn, the way Eliab greeted him, he looked at it and said, wow, this guy is talking like a king. He's walking like a king. He has all these things that you would expect a king to have.
Yes.
And by the time he looked at him, he said, oh, behold, the king of Israel. And he was about to pour the oil. Now, I remember a particular preacher sharing with us. He said, actually, that Samuel was about to pour the oil on the head of Eliab. In fact, he was pouring it. But the way the oil was that the oil was like wax, was like candle. And there seemed to be like this kind of magnetic force between the person that is to be anointed and the anointing itself. So when the oil comes upon the rightful person, it's as if the oil will melt. I don't know the spiritual explanation for that, but the oil will melt and the oil will begin to flow. But unfortunately, as he was trying to pour the oil upon the head of Eliab, the oil refused to flow. And so that was when he now realized, what is happening? What is going on here? And he began to speak to God, and God said, that is not the rightful person. That you look at the outward, but I look at the inward. We'll go on a short music break right now, and then we'll be right back. We'll still continue the conversation. Remember, this is Week Radio, and we're talking getting it right in relationship with PerfectStar. So don't touch that dial. We will be right back.
On earth. Men whose authority was reckoned with in the realm of the spirit were people that had power, staying power. In the
More music at waploaded.com.
Moranura, ire wọlé wá, mo gba lẹ́tà kan, mo rèsì ayọ̀, mo ròkè mo délé, àdúrà mi gbà ó ti dùn mo faramọ́, àjíǹde ayọ̀. What you gonna do? I'm gonna call it over, okay. Life is beautiful, it's okay. Jesu lokorede, ayomide. No more trouble, no more sorrow. I don't go beg, I don't go borrow. Jesu lokorede, korede. Jesu lokorede, akorede ni Jesu. Jesu lokorede, ire ayọ̀ ṣá ló ń jẹ́ tèmi o. Jesu lokorede, korede. Jesu lokorede, mo rí ire gbà, mo korede. No be them say, rara, the reality. Mo testify, I glorify you, Baba. Mo ajijo again, again, be a last once again I'm gonna joy. I'm gonna call this over, okay. Life is beautiful, it's okay. Jesus, look good I am in there. Oh, no more trouble, no more sorrow. I no go beg, I no go borrow. Jesus, look good Jesus, look good Jesus, look good I look at your day and color it and go to Jesus, look good I call it the redemption, I call it the connection. Jesus, look good but you exceedingly abundantly moving Bangkok, yes. Woo! Press down, shake it together, running over, yes. Oh, ibukun to gara, it's okay, it's alright, I'm okay, I'm alright. Give me victory, change my misery. Not give me the fight, not me the win, grace and mercy, no one believe. I try not put in shaky everybody, everywhere. Mighty Tyre, my provider.
Alright, that is Korede from Mike Abdul. Very wonderful song. Remember, this is still We Great You, and we are talking getting relationship right with PerfectStar. And we've been talking about God's spec, my spec, when my spec is not God's spec for me. Or how did we call that topic again?
What if God's will is not my spec?
What if God's will is not my spec? And there are a lot of people that find themselves in situations like that. And we did a case study of the life of the wonderful man called Jacob, who had his own spec. His own spec was Rachel, but unfortunately God's spec for him was Leah. And he just found himself being in that predicament. Okay, we are going to put a call across to somebody who would also be contributing to this in a matter of time from now. But while we are waiting for that, I'm also thinking about something, and that's about Jesus Christ. Now, yes, not in the aspect of marriage. When we started the conversation,
of course,
I said yes, relationship generally. Now, it could cut across everything. Now, for Jesus Christ was at that particular point where he was face to face with a particular situation, and then he just had to say, Lord, not my will, but let thy will be done. Okay, we have Babatunde Olawale Yusuf with us live on air now. Good morning, Mr. Babatunde Olawale Yusuf.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning. So good to
Good morning,
hear
sir.
from you.
Oh, nice hearing from you. I guess this big radio live.
Yes, you're
live.
live.
Listen to your conversation subsequently.
Yeah, you're live on Week Radio.
It?
This is Olawale Perfect, and you're live on Week Radio.
Oh, great. And this is Mr. Babatunde Olawale. Nice joining you live. I hope everybody is safe and sound.
Yeah, we are all doing well. We are doing well by the grace of God. Okay, so we've been having a conversation, and the conversation is when God's will is not my spec, and we are looking at it in terms of relationship, marriage, and things like that. There are a lot of times where young men or young ladies find themselves in a situation whereby
there's somebody that God is dropping on their heart that this is the person that you should get married to. Unfortunately, they are like, no, I don't want to get married to this person. I know that in your own case, when you were going to get married, you fasted for 100 days because I was privileged to interview you. So I would love to know, was there any situation whereby you felt, have there been any situation before now anyway, where God was dropping something on your heart which is different from what you have in mind? How can young people out there get to embrace God's will for them, especially when that will that God has for them is different from what they have in mind for themselves?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that question. And well, I think if I may just try to chip in some life scenarios, of course, there are situations where I find myself in which I try to get engaged or start a relationship, a courtship with somebody, and in actual sense, God was just telling me that it wasn't time yet. Okay, let me just put some three factors that are very, very crucial, especially when people actually go into relationships. And I believe this might work for a particular set of people, if not all, but it's a major factor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Am I loud and clear?
Yes,
So,
you are
Yes, you
loud
are.
and clear.
People, the normal term, okay, the normal term is the God factor. What is God saying about this relationship? What is God trying to impute into your heart? How far do you intend going into this relationship? So, what do I mean by the God factor? I almost entered into one before I met my wife, and after all said and done, and you try to feel that okay, this is a perfect spec. But you ask yourself, can this person actually fit into the plan that you have in the future? Can this person be ready to understand the God aspect of life? Now let me break down the God aspect of life. You say God said He's going to do something, and He doesn't do it. Now, if your belief tells you that God has said that He wants to do something, and the other person doesn't believe that God has said He is ready to do it, take for instance, delay. You get married and you ask yourself, am I going to be able to function well if delay comes? You can actually function well, and the other person cannot cope with it. Now, you look at it, are you trying to see the same thing God is seeing? If you realize that you are not seeing it the way God is seeing it, then I don't think that person is perfect for you. Why I lay that example is because when you want to plan a relationship, you want to go into a marriage. Not the marriage, yes, everybody wants marriage to be sweet, everybody wants. Try to look into the future. A great man once said that the only thing you can do for yourself is to try and pray into your future. By the time you pray into your future, some things are put in shape, some things are set in shape. Some things are done to help you actualize your dream. Now, if I might just chip in that if delay comes, will this person be able to stay till the length of time? Will this person be able to endure during this relationship? Now, if this person is not able to meet this category, how is he going to now fit into the relationship? When we now talk about spec. So my spec can be saying that, she has the perfect fit. She has the normal figure I'm trying to look for. She has the she has the godly attitude I'm looking for. But I tell you, does this person know God? Has this person consider the God factor that will be coming up in the relationship? Okay, let me leave out after the God factor now, the financial stability.
Okay.
You talk about financial stability in the relationship. Now, I am financially stable. Yes, these are things that they tell you when you enter into courtship. Ensure that your spouse is financially, most especially the husband, is the person you want to marry is financially stable. Now, every woman I want to meet somebody who is financially stable. But I tell you, can everyone actually be financially stable? Or you want to ask that, okay, what are the things that this person is putting on ground, planning on ground to be financially stable? Not everyone will get the person that, oh, he's super rich, and the likes. Some people's financial stability comes with the woman that comes into their life, comes with how they plan their life, comes with how they have structured their life. Now, in the plan and structure, when God was creating heaven and earth, it was sequential in the creation. So, in as much as it was sequential in the creation, at the end of his creation, he looked at it and said, this was perfect. Now, at the end of his planning as a man, at the end of all the structural plan he put into place, will it be perfect at the end? Those are financial stability. Will the financial stability be able to meet up with what we want to achieve in the future? Still looking at the specs. Now, you look at the third aspect, which is emotional. How emotional is this person when it comes to relationship? How emotional is this person when it comes to in-laws? How emotional, empathetic is this person when it comes to your people? How empathetic is this person when it comes to people around him or her? Do you want to move, or do you want to marry, or do you want to go into relationship somebody who is not empathetic about the fellow person in terms of, okay, they are
and sometimes people can even
by friends, there are basic needs that are needed in the church. There are basic needs that are needed outside the church. How can this person fit into it? You said your God's will for your life is now time to be practical about things that happen in the marriage. Can this person actually meet up with this, empathetic and be emotional about those needs? People always say that ladies are more emotional. But I tell you, is the man also being emotional about your needs? Does it cater for some of the needs that comes up in the marriage? You are cutting. Basic needs are coming up. He pretends as if he doesn't hear about it. You are cutting. There are some needs that the extended family are asking. Because these are people who you will later marry into the marriage, aside her or him. Some basic needs are coming in. How is he able to meet those? How is he emotional and empathetic about it? Does he just, he doesn't care? There are sometimes you discuss one or two things during the courtship with your spouse to be, and he ignores, or she ignores, or she finds a way around it that, okay, what can we do about it? Is this person empathetic about it when you are choosing your sex? So all these three major factors can come into how you choose your spec, how you determine who your spec is. Proverbs 16:25 says there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end is the way to death. So what way do you think that is seeming right to you? However, my dear brothers or sisters, it's actually leading to destruction. So check those ways very well. Check this woman, check this man very well. Has it met all the major criteria that is expected to meet before you actually say it's your spec? I started an example about myself that I fasted 100 days. Now, before that fasting 100 days, I heard clearly that, okay, if you actually want to pick the person you want to be with, there's a need for me to also drill you. There is a need for me to also check you and find some things that are not okay with you to be able to move on. Now, during this period that I'm fasting, it takes me to be humble, it takes me to ponder, it takes me to look at life in another perspective. It takes me to also analyze myself very well before I say, I want somebody who tall, dark, and handsome. I also tall, dark, and handsome. Do you understand? I'm also tall, dark, and handsome. You say you want somebody that is financially stable. Are you also financially stable yourself? All your life, have you been borrowing? All your life, have you been saying, this, please give me this, give me that? Can you count 3, 4, 5 of your friends and pick a call to them, say, hello, Kunle, hello, Wale, I need 50,000 and it's really urgent. How can you go about it? And this person say, okay, you are so big in my hand, we will find a way about it, even though I don't have it. Who are the people you mingle with? Who are the people you associate with? Before you say, you want to have a spec, or you want to meet this particular person. So several things can come along the line when we try to pick our sex.
Wow.
But the major thing is to always be careful in picking yourself, analyze yourself critically. Have you been able to deal with self? If you have been able to deal with self, it will be easy for this sex. When they come around, you don't see any negativity about them. All you see about is the God factor. All you see about is this person who is going to align with my plan.
Wow.
I told you last year, I told you something about my wife when I met her. I never even knew that she was also doing the 100-day fasting.
Wow.
Do you understand? And our mother said one thing, and which is something that I always look at. She said, when your man will come, you will look. And it will come during this period. Every standard that you set for yourself, this person might actually not meet the standard, and it might also meet the standard, but you work on yourself. By the time you work on yourself, a better version of the person you want in a step will come out.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Olale Babatunde. You just summarized all that we've been talking about since the beginning of this conversation, and I particularly love that part where you talked about the fact that beyond you looking for a particular spec, are you that kind of spec that you want? No, that was very, very instructive, because a lot of times many people want a particular kind of spec and they are not up to the standard of that spec that they want. So I must say a very big thank you to you for this wonderful contribution that you have made, and we are saying a very heartwarming message of hello to your wonderful wife, and we hope to have the both of you here in Week Radio one of these days, because I am particularly interested in that 100-day fasting and prayer story.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Nice to be here. I'm sure we'll be looking forward to meeting us someday. Pretty soon. I guess pretty soon. Okay, you should always plan now. Don't procrastinate what you can do tomorrow. Plan it now. So pretty soon, let me just put it that way, that we'll join you. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone.
All right.
Thanks for the people in the studio.
All right. God bless you so much.
Wow. You have said so much, and it's been an interesting conversation sincerely. Talking about the place of spec, and for me, my takeaway point from what Babatunde Olawale Yusuf said is the fact that there is a need for you to develop yourself to be the kind of spec that you actually want.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
so don't just keep praying and hoping. Yes, I have this spec. I want this person to be like this. I want to be this way, and all of those things. There's a need for you to also ask yourself, am I the kind of person that my spec will want to get married to? So, Okwesta, the conversation continues.
Okay. So, basically, we talked about the fact that we're not talking about marital relationships alone.
Yes.
We're talking about
Every aspect of life.
every aspect of life. Every aspect of life that some of us will get into universities, and we'll meet with friends that God has not ordained for us. You feel, there was a statement that went around recently. There was one statement that went around recently where one of our mummies was saying that if you are richer than all your friends, in quotes, if you're richer than all your friends, then you need new friends,
your friends.
And you're like, okay, did mommy get this from the Bible, or did she, did she come up with it from somewhere, or did she hear somebody else say such a thing? It's important to understand that.
And talking about that particular instance, I feel one of the things that we really need as believers is that we need to be led by the Spirit of God.
Exactly.
The question I should be asking myself is, who are those people that God has brought my way? Because the fact that somebody looked this way today does not mean the person is going
will
to be
look
permanently
like
that
that
way.
tomorrow. God will bless you. You know, I was thinking about it that, okay, for example, Samuel did not think at all that David was king material. David did not look like
He did not look like
material. David did not look like king material.
It was Eliab that looked like king material.
Thank you so much. You know, Eliab looks like king material. And you know, when we are taking such advice, I think we should take it.
I'm trying to imagine a scenario.
Okay.
You know, as you were saying it, something was just coming to mind.
Yes.
Imagine somebody was a friend to David.
Yes.
And then he looked at David. This guy is just a shepherd boy.
NFA.
There's no potential.
No future ambition.
Let me cut away from this friend before he will drag me down. And then he leave David to become a friend to Eliab that looked like the king material. And eventually, after maybe 20, 30 years, because actually it took about 30 years between the time when, 17 years, between when David
was anointed.
Is it 17? 13 years, 13 years to be precise.
Okay.
Now, between when he was anointed and when he eventually became king. And eventually, when he now became king, you now realize, where was Eliab after David became king? Eliab was nowhere to be found.
I don't know. But the fact remains that as a person, as a young person, if you're listening to us, if you get to university, don't judge your friendships by the way that person looks. Ask for God's will. Ask God for that. God, those you have ordained to be my friends. You know, I wrote that in my book, Don't Walk Alone. And I also prayed that prayer for myself. There was a time I was praying that prayer for myself, that God, choose my friends for me. I need to know the friends that you have ordained for me. And I saw God at work. God was bringing the people that I needed at that time, you know, to my life, and they came in at the right time. So it's important for you to know that your friend, the person that God has ordained to be your friend, might not be who looks like it. Jonathan did not look like a spec to be David's friend. I mean, Jonathan was the son of the current king. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. He was the son of the current king.
Jonathan actually had enough reasons why he shouldn't be a friend to
David. Yes. Jonathan was, you know, he was like the current king's son. So he had no business. He was not the spec that David would expect to be a friend. So please, let's be careful of the kind of advice that we take. Let's be careful when we hear pastors saying that opposite attracts. You know, let's be careful when we are looking at zodiac. You're trying to check a zodiac.
That's the conversation.
You know,
really
zodiac sign to know who is your compatible, you know, who is compatible. Yes, to know who is compatible with you. No, we don't do that in the kingdom where we come from. We don't do that. So for me, in summary, like I put on my status, Shora fun spec, like I said, and I'm going to say it again. In summary, Shora fun spec, Ọlọ́run á wà pẹ̀lú ẹ. Papa P.
Ṣọ́ra fún spec o.
Ọlọ́run á wà pẹ̀lú ẹ. Yes, you've heard that today. Ṣọ́ra fún spec. Ọlọ́run á wà pẹ̀lú ẹ. So our point is that let God's will be your spec. Trust me, even if that person doesn't look like what you want, if the person doesn't look like what you want, the person can still be God's will for your life.
So sometimes you get to meet with the person that, when you meet with God, the person God has actually ordained for you, whether the person looks like it or not, you know, you can trust God. You know, I remember there was a prayer that, you know, I was I think we prayed that prayer together when we were coaching then, and you know,
really?
It was
you?
You know, it was about the love of God being shed abroad in our heart. Now the truth of the matter is that you can meet somebody today and you just say, oh, I really don't love this person the way I should love this person. But you know, when the love of God is shed abroad in your heart, you just realize that you just wake up and you can't explain why you just keep loving this person. You just keep loving. You can't explain the love, because God himself is the one that has planted that love in you. So when God has ordained somebody to be your life partner, God himself is going to plant that love that you
in
need
your
in
heart.
in your heart for that particular
You know,
person.
and in that person's heart to
Yeah,
just
it's been
like-
a very interesting conversation in the last 1 hour and or thereabout, and we'll be wrapping up right about now. But like we said earlier on, sure, from spec.
yes, so
Oluwa pẹ̀lú
God
ẹ.
will be with you.
So as much as you may say, oh, I want to have my spec, be more concerned about what is God saying.
Yes,
What
and
is
as long
God
as
saying?
it's God that chose that person for you, be rest assured. Like we said, and like Mr. Babatunde Olawale Yusuf shared, like he
Yeah.
said, God sees the future.
Mm.
He knows the challenges that will come up in the future. He knows where you will be 10 years from now. He knows, he's aware, and he knows who will be able to handle that challenge. I think we mentioned that yesterday. We were asking when we're talking about if women should be in ministry or not, if women should be in pulpit ministry.
Yes.
And Pastor Tok's wife mentioned that some of all these people, like Catherine Kuhlman, that became divorced. You wonder why a woman on fire should get divorced. And she said that sometimes, as a lady that is on fire, it is good for you to ask God to send that man that he has prepared for you, that will be able to stand with you, despite the fact that you will be the one in the limelight. And she used Queen of England as an example. Queen of England was married to her husband for years, and they didn't divorce. The man died recently. Prince Philip died recently. They did not divorce, and they were very, very okay. So it's important for us to understand that God's will never be a mistake. God's will would never be a mistake. Even if the person does not look physically attractive, God will put the love of that person. When Leah gave birth to the boys, when she was giving birth to the boys, she named that, she was saying, Oju ti ota. Let's say that Oluwadamilare. Let's say Judah's name. Let's call Judah. Judah's Yoruba name is Oluwadamilare.
All my enemies. God has finally prepared them.
Oluwa pepper, like Mr. Perfect said, Oluwa peppered them, and it looked like eventually she knew that for the fact that you gave birth to 4 boys, your husband's attention is going to be turned towards you. God is going to bring out something out of it. So let's trust God when it comes to things like this, even relationship.
Yeah, it's been awesome and interesting, and I tell you, next week is going to be much more interesting than this. Every Friday by 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. We come up with getting relationship right with PerfectStar, and I tell you, it's going to be much more better next week. So don't touch the dial. Keep listening to Week Radio, and we want you to join us next week. And remember, you can actually send your questions.
Yes,
you can
please.
send your questions to us on wisdomgategroup@gmail.com.
Yes, please.
Or for this program specifically, you can send a mail to perfectstar@gmail.com. perfectstar@gmail.com. And we'll be so glad to get your mail and to also respond to you and make sure that the question that you ask is one of those things we consider in our conversation.
And don't forget, Shora fún spec.
Olúwa wà pẹ̀lú ẹ o.
Because Satan used to package spec for people.
Okay, I'm going to bring you this song as we wrap up, which is Òpómúléró.
Olúwa mi, bàbá mi, mo tó sọ wípé. Shelter.
Do you listen to Wig Radio? It's the best online radio with all-round gospel content, and it's live 24/7. Gospel of Entrepreneurship, Activate Airplane, Happy Hour, Kingdom Mandate, Praise and Passion. Let's talk about it. Morning Drive, Morning Gist, and lots more. On www.wigradio.com. Wig Radio. Our programs are set to take you from where you are to where you ought to be. You can call into our programs on +234 816 444 5960 and interact with us via twitter.com/wigradio or facebook.com/wigradio. Download Wig Radio mobile app for Android, BlackBerry, and Apple devices from different stores online. Wig Radio, reaching the world with good news, transforming lives globally.